if you were so devoted to each other, as I think you are, what about all these rows? You can't pick up a movie magazine or anything about Liz and Dick battling?
No, I must say we enjoy fighting. I think that fighting with somebody you love and are really sure of, and if you're really sure of yourself in your love, I think having a fight, an out-and-out, outrageous, ridiculous fight, is one of the greatest exercises in marital togetherness.
Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton were the kind of couple who made ordinary Hollywood romance look tame. They were glamorous, reckless, magnetic, and impossible to ignore. The sort of pair whose love stories seemed to belong as much to newspaper headlines as to the movies themselves. What began on the set of Cleopatra turned into scandal, marriage, divorce, remarriage, and then another heartbreak. Yet the strangest part is that the pull between them never really seemed to vanish. Their lives were crowded with other spouses, public fights, jewels, yachts, hit films, and enough drama for several lifetimes, but they kept circling back to each other anyway. And while plenty of famous couples break up and stay broken, these two did something far messier and far more revealing. If you remember Elizabeth and Richard as Hollywood's wildest love story, tell us in the comments whether you think passion like that was romantic or doomed from the start. Because now we know why Elizabeth Taylor married Richard Burton twice. The Spark.
Are you making faces?
Not many.
Mm-hmm. You're not on anymore, are you?
You may have noticed, ladies and gentlemen, that the only quarrels we have are public.
Elizabeth Taylor did not fall for Richard Burton because he arrived like a perfect gentleman. In fact, she had already heard enough about his womanizing to keep her distance. Years earlier, she had no interest in becoming another conquest, and when they met again during Cleopatra, his clumsy compliment did not exactly sweep her off her feet either. On paper, it should have stayed a flirtation and nothing more. But chemistry has a way of laughing at logic. The turning point came during production, when Burton was hungover, shaky, and in need of coffee, and Taylor stepped in. What followed was one of those moments both of them seemed to remember as bigger than it looked at the time. They stared at each other, something shifted, and the movie suddenly had an off-screen drama to match the one in front of the camera. That was the real beginning. Taylor later said she fell in love with him on the set and never stopped loving him. Burton, who had seen his share of on-set affairs, first treated the relationship like one more reckless adventure. Then he realized this one was different. It was not a passing attraction, it was the kind that rearranges everything around it. Part of why she married him twice comes down to that first shock of recognition. For Taylor, Burton was not just another husband in a long list. He was the man who got under her skin in a way no one else did. Their story was unstable from the beginning, but it was never casual. Le Scandale.
It doesn't seem fair. What I feel, I should have felt long ago, when I was very young, when I could say to myself that this was how love was and how it would be. But to have waited so long, to know so suddenly, it's late. Oh, it hurts. How love can stab the heart.
The affair did not unfold quietly. Both were married, both were famous, and both were already the sort of figures gossip writers loved. Once the romance spilled off the Cleopatra set, the press treated it like a global event. Their every move was chased, photographed, and judged. Even major world news sometimes had to compete with the spectacle of Burton and Taylor. That outside pressure only made everything more feverish. The Vatican condemned the relationship. Newspapers framed it as moral collapse, and the pair themselves gave the scandal a kind of theatrical identity by calling it Le Scandale. They were not just having an affair, they were becoming a phenomenon. Inside that storm, the relationship was already volatile. Both drank heavily, both had explosive tempers, and both seemed to bring out each other's extremes. Their passion was real, but so were the fights. This was not a case of two stars misunderstood by the world. It was a romance that was genuinely combustible. Still, even while the scandal raged, neither of them could fully step away. Taylor admitted they tried to resist because they didn't want to hurt others, especially Burton's wife, Sybil. But by then, the relationship had gathered too much force. One reason she married him twice was simple and troubling at the same time. Once they crossed that line, neither of them seemed capable of returning to ordinary life. Life at full volume. When they finally married in 1964, the wedding did not calm anything down. If anything, it formalized the chaos. Their household blended children from previous marriages, yet domestic life was never going to turn them into a quiet suburban couple. They lived loudly, traveled lavishly, and treated luxury almost like a love language. Burton adored buying Taylor jewels, and she adored wearing them. Their marriage became famous for its treasures as much as its fights. The Taylor Burton diamond, La Peregrina, the Krupp diamond, homes around the world, yachts, planes, and grand hotel suites all fed the image of two people determined to live as extravagantly as they loved. Taylor did not just marry Burton because of desire. She married him because life with him felt oversized. He matched her intensity, her appetite for beauty, her taste for drama, and her refusal to live small. Ordinary companionship was never the appeal. With Burton, everything came turned up. At the same time, they were helping fuel each other professionally. Taylor was already a massive star, and Burton's profile rose higher in Hollywood as their fame as a couple grew. They acted together repeatedly, and audiences could not get enough of the mix of real life and performance. The marriage worked as romance, spectacle, and creative partnership all at once, which helps explain why letting go was so difficult later. Cracks in the marriage.
I think we were so passionately in love with each other that the highs were too high. It was almost like everything was too much. We loved each other almost too much. It sounds silly.
No, it doesn't.
But it was so intense that it was almost abnormal.
For all the glamour, the first marriage was never stable. They were known as the Battling Burtons for a reason. Their arguments were legendary, and the drinking only made the bad stretches worse. Taylor once described them as magnets, pulled together and then pushed apart, which may be the cleanest description of their whole relationship. What's striking is that even inside the turmoil, the attachment remained intense. Taylor's anniversary letter to Burton overflowed with desire, jealousy, fear, and love all mixed together. It did not sound like a woman going through the motions. It sounded like someone still overwhelmed by the same man who could also drive her to fury. By 1974, the marriage finally buckled under the strain. Their fights had become too frequent, the volatility too exhausting, and divorce arrived almost like the ending everyone had seen coming. But divorce did not solve the real problem. It ended the legal bond, not the emotional one. That's the key to the second marriage. Taylor did not remarry Burton because the first marriage had worked so well. She remarried him because the divorce had not cured the longing. Whatever had been broken between them, the pull was still there. In some ways, the second wedding was an attempt to recover the magic without the destruction, though both probably knew deep down that separating the two would be difficult. The return.
But it was great. And we thought about each other, and we talked about each other, and whenever we'd see each other.
Even after the divorce?
Oh,
and the
yeah,
marriage and
in
the
between
divorce?
marriages and stuff, we'd flirt with each other, and if we were sitting next to each other, we'd feel each other under the table. And it was very hard for me to accept his death. It took a long time.
Their second marriage in Botswana in 1975 was quieter and more private, which suggests they wanted something different the second time around. Less spectacle, less noise, more intimacy. Taylor even wrote about it as a return to where they belonged. That kind of language says everything. She did not see the remarriage as starting over with a new man. She saw it as coming back to the one she still considered home. Yet the same old fault lines remained. The tenderness was real, but so was the damage they had done to each other over the years. Within 10 months, the second marriage ended too. Taylor admitted she loved him with every fiber of her soul, but they could not be together. Burton understood it in his own brutal way. Life with her was marvelous, he said, but it could also be murder. And still, even after the second divorce, neither one entirely released the other. They spoke on the phone, shared important moments, and kept drifting back into each other's orbit. Burton even predicted that they would always be drawn back together, no matter who else they married. That sounds less like romantic bragging and more like exhausted truth. So why did Elizabeth Taylor marry Richard Burton twice? Because the first marriage ended without ending the love. Because the life they built was too intense to forget and too intoxicating to replace. Because she knew better, but feeling better is not the same as feeling finished. And because, for all the damage, Richard Burton remained the one man she never really got over. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Elizabeth Taylor married Richard Burton twice because she believed they could truly change, or because some loves are simply too powerful to leave behind for good? Let us know in the comments section below.